Welcome, everybody, to Debating Doctor Who. I'm Alistair Wilkins.
And I'm Alison Shoemaker.
And Alison, something remarkable has happened.
It really has. It warranted an all caps text from me to you for, let's see, I'm going to see how many of those there have been. I got one from you when they announced Jodie.
Yeah.
You got one from me when they announced Eccleston coming to Big Finish.
Yep.
Am I forgetting anything else?
Those feel like the big and obvious ones in the time that we have been doing this.
And yet this, I think, dwarfs those. There should be an option beyond all caps.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like, it's where you get like the klaxon emojis out, you know?
Yes, totally.
Just to really indicate, you know, woo, 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 you know, news alert, you know, that. So it's like,
and we are, of course, referring to the rumors that Chris Marshall is going to be the next Doctor. I don't say it with a straight face.
I don't treat them as rumors. I don't treat them as. I treat that as just a fact yet to be.
Canon.
And we'll you know, it's a fact in some timeline, in some dimension. It's happening. So we just need to find that dimension and get there. Is my general feeling. And maybe that's the dimension we're living in, because we're living in the dimension where Russell T Davies is back on Who. He's back. And it's about time. It's wild.
I can't really wrap. I mean, I'm very excited. You and I are obviously, we share a love of all things Whovian. You are far more well versed in classic Who than I am. And we both have mixed feelings about all of our showrunners, but you know me, I just love the RTD era. So this was a very exciting announcement for me personally. Bring on the mess. I want nonsense and lots of feelings and good characters. Please, give it all. I can't wait to get to know people's parents. It's going to be great. I'm there. If we don't get something with the Ood, I'm just going to light something on fire. Like, I'm very into this. How are you feeling about it?
I am really excited to watch a Russell T Davies show run Who that I'm not actively rebelling against at every moment, which is that was definitely series 2 through 4. I would say. I think the Tennant Davis era and I never really vibed in the time that it was running. I think I was more on board with series 1 in general, and that I attribute to the Eccleston factor. But I'm really excited because I think that, like, so many of the things that Davis, so many of his creative decisions, I think, were this attempt to sort of bridge those who are coming at it as fans of the classic show, of which I was part of that very last generation who were classic Who fans first, because I got into it in like 2001, 2, 3, I forget exactly which year, but it was right beforehand. And then, you know, those who were coming to it as a new thing. And I think that so many of the things that I think I can look back and say were, you know, like I mean, the incorporation of romance is probably the most obvious one, and the way that he handled, you know, relationships with the companions, especially with Rose, like, a lot of that rankled. And I rewatched Tooth and Claw over the weekend, and it still rankles. Ten and Rose are insufferable, but like, I am really excited to come to this at a point where so many of those things have now just been, you know, time has really mellowed me on a lot of these. Moffat definitely, like, took them so much further, and at this point it's like, I think that one of the things that I think we can maybe get into, but, like, a lot of the RTD era, to my mind, as much as it goes for it with, you know, a capital G, F, and I, in some respects, I also think it's holding back on some things because it's trying to kind of split the difference, and in a way that it's going to be really interesting to see Davis coming back to now a mature show where I think that what we've seen is you really can do anything with it, and I think that, like, everything has been syncretized at this point. Like, there isn't a sort of, you know, large, like, revanchist classic faction and a large, like, and a sort of, you know, equally large new Who faction. Certainly people have their favorites, as you mentioned, and all of that, but I'm very excited to see how this is going to be different than what we saw before, as well as all the things that I hope the return of RTD does promise.
Yeah, one of the things, and I saw this sentiment repeated kind of a lot on social media, one of the things that sort of gives me a little twinge of regret or what if or what could have been is I feel like a lot of our complaints about the Chibnall era are things that RTD would have been incredibly well suited to sort of amp up, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the places where the Chibnall Whittaker seasons have felt a little bit thin are, for better and for worse, and for me mostly for better, things that Davis excels at in all of his writing for film and television, not just in Doctor Who. Yeah. He really understands characters and allows them to be complicated and contradictory. He knows how to establish character really quickly and to let things marinate and change and build. There's God, I'm gonna sound like such an asshole right now, but like a level of emotional poetry where things are allowed to go unsaid, and he trusts the actors to sort of convey a lot of what's going on in the subtext and between the lines, and to tie pieces together in a way that's always really resonated with me. And that's true of his work outside of Doctor Who as well, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen a lot of that. But if for some reason you haven't, check out, God, any of them. He's got a wealth of great work. I'm particularly partial to A Very English Scandal, but you've got lots of options. And It's a Sin is obviously great. Everyone is real buzzy about that one at the moment. And it just makes me wish that he was writing for Jodie. You know what I mean? Like, it makes me wish that we could get one more season of Jodie Whittaker and all of the really incredible things that she brings to the table as a performer in an environment where that's going to be fully taken advantage of, instead of a great actor sort of spackling over some rough patches to sort of piece together an emotional through line where one maybe doesn't exist, or where things are a little bit thin or lackluster. We would have this rich, sometimes batshit crazy subtext that she would be able to pull from. And, that's true of Yaz, too. Like, I would love to see a Mandip Gill Russell T Davies episode. Like, I would love that. Who knows? Maybe she'll stay. She won't. But I'm still excited about whatever it is that comes next. And I'm also interested, and this is what I want to hear your thoughts on. In addition, sure. I want to hear your thoughts on everything. But specifically, since we agreed to sound the emergency pod klaxon and jump on to talk about this, I've been wondering how you feel about what RTD might do with whatever Chris Chibnall is leaving behind. Like, what is he going to do with the Timeless Child? What is he going to do with the Joe Martin Doctor? What are these things going to be completely unacknowledged? Is he going to incorporate them? Is he going to... your guess is obviously as good as anyone's, but as a person who has got a really great sort of global view of what the Doctor Who universe has been and could be, I've been dying to hear your thoughts on that specifically.
Yeah, that is a fascinating question. That does feel like $1 million question, if not the one. Also, just going back a little bit, I have to say, I think it took a little bit, but I think in emotional poetry, you and Davis now have the answer to Moffat and my narrative pyrotechnics. So I'm glad that they now both have this hilariously over-the-top, bombastic way of describing what it is they do. I think that's a great question, and this is, I guess, kind of goes back to the point that I was making earlier, which is the RTD Who was very purposefully continuity light. It was very much, and that's why the Time War was invented as this narrative device to free the show from having to be responsible, for any of the stuff that had come before it, and it, the series basically explicitly gets rid of some of the wilder additions that the TV movie did. Most notably, the Doctor really does appear to be, no longer half human, though, of course, Timeless Child throws a wrench into the seemingly, again, simple question of what is the Doctor's species? And so, and then, but also like the, more than a Time Lord stuff that the Seventh Doctor era, that the so-called Cartmel Master Plan kicked around. These are not threads that the show picked up, and obviously there's a difference between picking things up after 16 years, give or take a TV movie, versus picking things up after, say, 16 weeks, or however long it's going to be between that final regeneration special in 2022 and Davis's first episode. The exact format of which is still a little unclear, but I'm certainly going to go ahead and hope that we're going to get at least a full series in 2023 under his watch. So that's a lot of that's a lot of not answering your question. I honestly think this is going to be potentially one of the ways in which Davis can differentiate himself from tenure 2 from tenure 1, in that he now does have the option of picking up threads from previous showrunners that he can reasonably expect audiences to know what the hell he's talking about. And so then it comes down to the question of, is that something that he's going to want to do? Is that Davis's approach as a writer, if he feels that that's something that is now open to him in a way that I do think he purposefully and I think correctly avoided in the original run? I don't know the answer to that, and I think it's one of the things that I'm most curious about. Are we going to see, say, the Sacha Dhawan Master carryover? That, to my mind, feels like that's roughly where I would put the inflection point right now in terms of like a thing that he could carry over, because this is where, as we've mentioned, there are a lot of tonal similarities between the Davis and the Chibnall eras, so I can imagine the Dhawan Master working well opposite an RTD cast 14th Doctor. By the way, that's wild. RTD is going to get to cast a 3rd Doctor. I'm very excited about that. Moffat in shambles, thought he had the record ties, sewn up for most Doctors created and written for, but no longer the case. So yeah, I don't know. I think that I'm really interested to see how he goes. And like I said, I think that's the thing to my mind that is going to be most revealing. Like, is Doctor Who as this relatively stripped down thing where the continuity is primarily internal to the era? Is that how we're going to do it? And if that's the case, is RTD going to purposefully avoid bringing things back from his own previous era? Or is it going to be that RTD feels comfortable bringing back things he created, but avoids Chibnall stuff? And then, to my mind, the real most interesting question is Davis going to play with any of the Moffat created toys? That, to my mind, is really, really interesting. An RTD River Song episode is theoretically now on the table. That is intriguing to me.
Yeah, that's intriguing to me too. I've been thinking about the previous part of your question, which is what from his own first era would he be bringing back? And I think for me, being a great aficionado of what we'll call live in the moment fan fiction, I just can't stop thinking about like, oh, is there some way that we're gonna get a Rose Tyler appearance? Is it possible that we're going to see... Is this the moment where they find a way to bring Eccleston back again? Like, what are we going to do? What's this going to be?
I would interject to say, I think nothing has made it less likely that Eccleston will appear on the TV show in the near future than RTD coming back as showrunner.
Fair. I mean, you are correct. But there's all these great characters, all this
Absolutely.
Great stuff from the first era. And I've been so focused on that I haven't even really thought about what a Moffat creation could look like in Russell T Davis's hands. That's fascinating.
And something that, I want to be careful here, because I think there's certainly a risk of too much reading the tea leaves from what is a press release. It is just a press release. I wasn't, what is essentially a press release? No, it's literally a press release. But I do think it's interesting that the way that the BBC has been framing this and the way it seems to have been reported is talking about RTD taking over for the show's 60th anniversary and series beyond. And I don't think that they had to emphasize the fact that he's coming back in the 60th anniversary year. And that makes me think that it's possible that the 60th anniversary is something that they're going to want to do something with. It certainly makes me think it's more possible that we will see some sort of special, which then that does raise the specter of multi-doctor silliness, which does mean David Tennant being written for by Russell T. Davis again I think that is on the table. And
I'm trying so hard not to giggle with delight, but good gravy. It's like it's my birthday.
And then also potentially Matt Smith being written by RTD for, never forget, for the second time, because of his appearance in the Sarah Jane Adventures. And then the most intriguing, and I will say second to Eccleston, which I'm just taking that one off the board, to be honest, but the most interesting feasible possibility, RTD writing lines for Peter Capaldi is it's conceivable. I'm not going to say it's probable, but it is conceivable for a theoretical 60th anniversary special. All of these things are possible. I think that's the biggest thing. Doctor Who feels awash with possibilities again. And some of this is nerdy, fanish, crossing streams of different eras stuff, but it's also, honestly, I am just so excited for the new and original stuff that RTD is going to do. I cannot tell you how excited I am for the first awful episode of the new RTD era.
Me too. Oh gosh, just absurd. That's what I meant by the nonsense. As much as I love
Absolutely.
the emotional poetry, I also really love the nonsense. He's very good at nonsense. Even when it misses, it's not boring. You're not gonna fall asleep. Sometimes you get Father's Day, and sometimes you get tiny old person doctor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a wealth of possibilities, like cat nuns. Let's do it. That's what I'm excited about. In addition to everything else, I'm excited about all the things. Let's be real.
I don't think there is a dull RTD written episode. There's a couple episodes in his era that I think you might call dull. Fear Her is always the obvious one.
Yeah.
To throw out there. Even Fear Her, though, I think is more interesting than some of the most sloggy episodes of the last couple seasons. That to my mind is the thing, and I really come here not to bury the Chibnall era unnecessarily, though I have to say it's real hard not to read this as at least a little bit of a repudiation of the Chibnall era, that they had to bring RTD back. But
yeah. They had to know that the headlines they were going to get was Russell T. Davis to save Doctor Who a second time. Because I saw that headline repeated over and over and over again.
It's hard. What this, just the sidebar is, and as you said, how shocking this was. And it's one of those things that's fascinating, because it was, on the one hand, shocking, because I don't really think this was something that was being, seriously considered or by too many people as anything other than just, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if this happened? So on the one hand, yes, it was surprising, but on the other hand, when you make the list of every theoretical candidate and you start crossing off all the ones that just for whatever reason it seems unlikely, it's amazing how quickly you do kind of get down to, oh, maybe he really was the only logical choice. And I don't think it's great that it implies that there are maybe only 2 people on this planet that the BBC entrusts to do this job, and only one of them has enough time away from it that he likely could be enticed back. But that's kind of the vibe I get from this, to be honest. it does feel like, and I think it is reflective of, I mean, when we were having the conversation throwing around potential new showrunners, it was very hard to come up with a singular person that seemed plausible. And why I know I was throwing around, well, maybe you just grab these three successful, these three writers who seem like they know what they're doing, and to have more of a kind of co-showrunner writer's room approach. But no, this is going fully in the other direction. Now just give it back to RTD and let him sort it out.
Yeah. Prior to this announcement, I saw a lot of speculation that was just never going to happen. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and she also stars. Michaela Cole, and she also stars. And
people
it's fascinating.
Love the people showrun and star in Doctor Who. People really enjoy that one.
That seems impossible to me. And as much as I would love to see either of those really magnificent actors in a part like this, or in really any part in Doctor, like Michaela Cole could do anything she wants, frankly. And if she wants to be on Doctor Who and just play, I don't know, the Queen of the Ood, anything she wants, she gets from me. But that was never going to happen. So then you start thinking, well, who's got a track record as a showrunner who can take a gig that's this high profile in a way that's going to reassure a passionate fan base? And I think you're right. The list is like, it's two, and it was never going to be Stephen Moffat. So I was thinking of like Kato Shimizu, who runs Legends of Tomorrow, but she's American. Or maybe she's Canadian. She's from North America. So that was, as much as I would love that was never going to happen. And then it just sort of go, then who knows, right? It's just, there aren't many other names. There are lots of prominent showrunners, and none of them, like Jesse Armstrong's not going to do Doctor Who. You know what I mean? It's not, as much as I would love that, it's not going to happen. So I think that somehow this incredibly unlikely choice is also both an inevitable one, and I'm a little surprised that more people didn't see it coming. I'm, however, not surprised and very encouraged by how positively people seem to be responding to this announcement, including people, anecdotally, people just in my friend circle, social media networks, whatever, who've left the show, who haven't watched in years, prior to Chibnall, who are now excited about Doctor Who again. And that's very encouraging to me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I think, and I worry that I'm restating something that we had on the last conversation, so I'll keep this brief, but I do think that this does speak to part of why it was so hard to come up with this, which is that feeling that the show running model of Doctor Who is stuck in 2005 to some degree, which was right at the heart of the era of the showrunner. And I think that the showrunner doesn't feel as significant a figure in television now as it was then. Like the idea of like the superstar TV creator was a bigger thing in the O's, and Davis was probably the biggest of those, or certainly one of the contenders for the biggest of those in the UK in the O's. And Moffat, I think, did come to rival him, but on the strength of having done a whole bunch of things. I don't know whether he had quite attained that kind of superstar status prior to doing Doctor Who and Sherlock simultaneously, but I think he got there in the end. And I think that Chibnall, basically on the strength of, well, he'd written a bunch of episodes for the show, and Broadchurch was a thing people talked about a few years ago. Like, you could see it. But once you got past them, again, it's really hard to come up with someone, and I'm sure there are people who, any of our British listeners probably have a better sense of these people, but I get the sense a lot of them are doing cop shows. The fact that British television seems to be an ever increasing percentage of them are cop shows, and admittedly that was what Broadchurch was. I don't know, it seems to me that's, for as long as Doctor Who remains locked into this production formula that does feel increasingly of a previous era, it makes sense that they had to get the guy who was the best choice the first time around and is still the best choice in 2021, in part because it is a little bit of a relic. But RTD hopefully is up for another round and is going to be great a second time around. So, but yeah, I guess I'm raising a sort of larger meta question for the long-term health of the show, but honestly the best thing for the short-term health of the show feels like the decision they just made, which is give it to a guy who has proven he knows what he's doing with this show.
Yeah, and who already once sort of injected new energy, new lifeblood into it, which is, and I'll tell you, I'll be disappointed if, which is a weird thing to say about seasons of television that I love, but I'll be disappointed if what we get out of however many seasons that we're going to get from RTD this time around, if it's all a lot like the first time without any new, confusing, surprising element. But I also think that's unlikely because he continues to evolve as a writer. He continues to change as a writer, which is what makes all the things I liked before are likely to come back. But he's also just as likely to add and change and transform and mutate the ingredients that we know and love in a way that feels really fresh and new and vital. And then who knows what the show looks like after that. Maybe he is the person to sort of bring New Who into the current era of television, and sort of revitalize it again. I think that is entirely likely. And now that you bring up the specter of the 60th anniversary, I'm once again delighted by the possibility that he could be writing for Jodie Whittaker, which is I just want it so much.
I know you want it so bad.
So much. I love her. She's such a good performer. It's not that she's been served badly. It's just that she got the role of a lifetime, and then the writing for the role of a lifetime was meh pretty much the whole way through.
I think she's been served badly. I think that at this point, I'm willing to say that.
We've got another season to go, but I have to admit that it's nice feeling like I can now pin my hopes on maybe Russell T Davies writes for Jodie Whittaker instead of maybe this last season with Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker is going to be delightful. It's nice to be able to pin my hopes on something that seems more likely.
Mm-hmm. I want all these things for you, Allison. That's what I will. That's what I will say. I'm glad that the return of RTD has brought hope back to Doctor Who. I think that that is a hell of a direction in which you're pointing that hope. But
I mean, it's pointing in lots of directions, but that's one of them.
No, absolutely. I mean, one thing that I do think is interesting, and I think this is where inadvertently the Chibnall era may force RTD's hand a bit, assuming that he does have, that he's not just going to be playing the hits. Like if he's just coming in to play the hits, then I think casting a very Tennant-like 14th Doctor and just kind of going on and doing that thing again, then I would be disappointed. But I do think the fact that 13 has felt so 10-like, the fact that Chibnall has felt so Davis influenced in some of his storytelling approaches, again, even if he certainly lacks some of the writing tools that I think and writing skills that Davis has, I think that may well help to push Davis in a different direction. And I think that is going to be really interesting. Like I would think that there's an opportunity now in the 14th Doctor to cast a very different kind of Doctor from what 10 and 13 felt like. Because you always want each new Doctor to feel to some degree like a reaction and a separation from the previous one. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's a long way off, but I'm very interested for when we get the casting of the 14th Doctor and who that is going to be. I think that, and listen, if the person who gets cast seems to cut a Tennant-ish kind of figure, I'm still going to reserve judgment, but I would love if it's somebody who you look at and you just think, like say an Eccleston, like, oh, that's going to be different than anything I can imagine right now. That's what I'm hoping for. I think that'll really put me over the top.
Well, my favorite thing is rampant, ridiculous Doctor speculation. And one of the things that you texted me in our all-caps conversation over the weekend was that this is finally going to be how Russell Tovey gets to be the Doctor. Yeah. How likely do you think that actually is?
Well, if Davis were casting it in 2010, I think he would have backed up the proverbial Brinks truck to get Russell Tovey. I mean, Russell Tovey remains great, and I know that Davis he has never been chill about how much he loves Russell Tovey. I think is my general understanding. So, I will say, I mean, we had this discussion earlier. Doctor Who showrunners. Well, no, that's not true. Davis and Chibnall have had a track record of casting people that they have worked with in the past. Both Eccleston and Tennant had worked with Davis before they were cast, and with Chibnall, Whittaker, and Bradley Walsh, he had worked with both of them on Broadchurch and Law & Order UK, respectively. Moffat, not so much, but that is not relevant for this conversation. So I certainly think the track record would suggest that Davis is more likely than not to cast somebody that he has previous familiarity with or is sort of well known for being a big fan of, I guess is what I would say there.
Well, besides Russell Tovey, who do you think that puts in play?
Well, this is where we now break out the cast lists of recent RTD stuff, doesn't it? I will say.
Let me go to IMDb.
It makes the Ollie Alexander rumors take on at least a soupçon more plausibility to me. I will say that much. And then, given that he was the star of It's a Sin. Mm-hmm. And then I think that the other one and I guess, Russell Tovey, was he in Years and Years? Am I remembering that correctly? I don't have the Years and Years cast list memorized for whatever reason. That's my failing, and I'm going to have to live with that. But
do not remember, but I'm literally on IMDb right now, so I'm going to look it up.
I think the most interesting one is, I'll tell you who the most interesting name is to me, because it's a big name.
Okay.
And it's one that I think RTD has since said was somebody that he offered the role of the Ninth Doctor and who turned it down back then. And has been the star of a recent RTD joint, A Very English Scandal. I think Hugh Grant is a really interesting name to pay attention to here, because Hugh Grant is a fully television actor now, the most beautiful kind of actor, and I think everyone has come around on the fact that, he's really bleeping good.
Yeah.
And I think that if you wanted to say the Doctor is not going to be like a previous RTD Doctor, Hugh Grant, I don't see him being Eccleston-like or Tennant-like. And it's a hell of a way to announce Doctor Who is back and matters again, is casting Hugh Grant. So that's one I'm very interested in as a possibility.
You know, Hugh Grant, now that you say that, I remember hearing that anecdote before, but Hugh Grant is not the person that I thought of from A Very English Scandal. I thought of Ben Whishaw. But Ben Whishaw would be Tennant adjacent. I mean, their energies are very different, but there's like a handsome, slim, white dude thing that they have in common.
He also feels in the Smith zone as well, I feel like and that's fine, but I do think that would be a casting. Ben Whishaw would be a casting where I'd be like, he's certainly a big name, can't argue that, and I think he could be good, but I would also say I'm not sure I immediately see how he would be good in a way that would be different from Tennant, Smith, or Whittaker. And I think that, to me, is my biggest thing on any sort of wish list. But I'm going to trust in RTD generally, is my feeling here. I think he has earned more than the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and he's great with casting. He is great with working with established names and getting really interesting performances out of them, and working with people who are maybe not as familiar to us and making them much more well known. I checked, and Russell Tovey was in Years and Years.
Yep, it was the protagonist, I think, or at least one of the most crucial people.
Yeah. Whenever I think Years and Years, I think Emma Thompson, and then everything else just flies out of my head. Which, by the way, that would be amazing. That's never going to happen, but that would be cool. My
mom would be so happy if Emma Thompson were cast.
I love her so much. Maybe she'll do an episode. Like, let's get Emma Thompson in the Doctor Who universe, please. Also, Jessica Hines was in Years and Years, and that could be interesting and very different, given her previous role in the show.
Certainly never look at Human Nature the same way again. Which also, if we're talking Human Nature, never forget the one person that RTD did stump for the next Doctor was Harry Lloyd. And I enjoy his weirdo presence. He is one of our great oddball actors, and I would be very, very down for that. One of the things that made the first season of Game of Thrones, the first 3 episodes of Game of Thrones fun, and also one of the reasons why I got one episode into I believe the show is called Counterpart before saying I think I understand what this is, but he was quite good in it. He was very good.
I watched more than one episode. I did not finish it, but I watched more than one episode. He was very good throughout.
Yeah, I mean my just it takes a lot to hook me on a show, but he was good in it. He was one of the selling points for me. The other name to throw out here from years and years is Rory Kinnear. If we're talking about RTD and also James Bond people, since between Wishaw and Kinnear, but again, that would be a very different vibe. That's another one where I think if you're going for somebody who's probably going to feel a little more human as the Doctor, kind of more of a Peter Davison-esque kind of, low key kind of presence. I think that's another interesting one. And then there's a lot of other names from various RTD shows that I'm honestly not as familiar with, that I can't speak to as well as to what might make them good. I will say I certainly plan on giving A Very English Scandal and It's a Sin a watch, and maybe I could be twisted into years and years, but I feel like this is good homework now, because I mean, listen, if you watched The Second Coming and Casanova, you would have seen both of his 2 doctors, so it's good. It's historical precedent that it's good prep to watch these.
I wonder, maybe Queer as Folk? Like, Aidan Gillen would be really different. Charlie Hunnam would be really different. Can you imagine? That would be really weird and cool.
I mean, that one. I'm gonna need a minute. I'm gonna need a minute for the idea. I guess the idea, I mean, listen, in a world where, Malcolm Tucker can become the Doctor, I guess all things are possible, but the idea of Jax Teller becoming the Doctor is...
I mean, Hugh Grant, Yeah, and
but,
Hugh Grant is, one of my favorite actors, but...
I agree. No, I agree that Hugh Grant would be great for a reboot of Sons of Anarchy, but it's... I did not realize it was Aidan Gillen and Charlie Hunnam were 2 of the stars of Queer as Folk. That was not on my radar. I just did not know who the only person I can name from either Queer as Folk off the top of my head was Hal Sparks. So, and that's because of a lot of those I Love the Blanks specials on VH1 or whatever it was back in the day. That's a thing I didn't need to keep in my head. But anyway, yeah, so... I mean, there's there's some real fascinating and interesting deep cuts. And what I will say is, it's one of those things where either way I'm going to be excited about it, because if RTD casts somebody that he's worked with before, then we get to go back and take a look at what they did together and get interested and excited about it, because you can certainly see the embryonic 10th Doctor in David Tennant's Casanova. Listen to my episode with Kev Kozer back in the feed about Casanova for that. And if you watch The Second Coming, I think you can see at least some of, it's been a while since I've watched it, so I don't want to say as for certain, but I think you can also see some of the embryonic 9th Doctor in Christopher Eccleston playing the Second Coming of Jesus. And that's an episode I still want to make one of these days, looking at that one. So, or if it's not someone he's worked with before, then that means that RTD is excited about working with that person, and there's a good track record there too.
I have one more name that I want to throw out, and this is just because I was clicking through IMDb, but I just got very excited about this idea, so now I have to say it. I'm going to mispronounce his name because he didn't win an Emmy, so I didn't hear it said out loud. But Papa Esedu, maybe? who was nominated for an Emmy for I May Destroy You, was also in the TV movie version of Midsummer Night's Dream that RTD did, and he's incredible. Just really, really compelling and interesting, and I would love that. So who knows? Do it. Put him somewhere. Doctor, companion, I don't care. Get him in the TARDIS. I'll watch it forever.
Absolutely. I'm not familiar, I have to admit, but I trust in your assessment, and I think that there's just a lot of really interesting and good possibilities here, is the general feeling that I got. And again, like, the least likely casting maybe of the entire run was Billie Piper. And look how that one worked out. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were really not sold on Catherine Tate, based on The Runaway Bride, which I know some people are say, no, she was good from the start, but I think I certainly was in the camp of, I'm not sure how this is going to work for a full series, and it really worked for a full series. So he's got a good track record of these things. And also, I will just say, because I'm shocked that you haven't brought it up, Bernard Cribbins is 92 years young. So, all things are possible.
I mean, I've been resisting the urge to bring it up because I didn't want to jinx it. But yeah, if we're going to get more Wilf, then it really is my birthday. Then it's like, holy cow. 60. It's
the only returning person for the 60th anniversary.
It's just called Wilf now.
It's just called Wilf. It's just called it's titled It's Just Called Wilf. That's the new name of the show. It's going to be Dr. Wilf. It's going to be great. Well, I mean, we're in it's a very, very exciting time. And as exciting as it has been honestly for a long time. I mean, I don't want to necessarily say all the way back to that day in 2003 when it was first announced for the first time round that RTD would be taking things on. But it's certainly one of the most exciting days. It has been one of the most exciting few days in my Doctor Who fandom, for sure. And as I say, I don't want to be unnecessarily mean to the Chibnall era, but I do think that to be necessarily mean to the Chibnall era, I will just say, as we said, RTD is a lot of things. He's never boring.
Never.
Like, even End of Time Part 1, which I think is tedious, I don't think you can say it's boring. It's way too stupid to be boring. Like, it's paced horribly. That is, like, I think the specials, he's definitely tired once he gets to the specials. I will say that. And even then, Next Doctor and Waters of Mars, fantastic. And End of Time Part 2, great fun. But, like, even toward the end, where you can tell he was ready to step away for a bit, and I think you can kind of tell from maybe a little bit Planet of the Dead and End of Time Part 1. Like, End of Time Part 1 is still one of the most bonkers hours of television ever made. Its weird adulation of Barack Obama is one of those things that just ages better every day. It's just incredible shit, with an emphasis on the second word in that phrase. But it's so, yeah. And then I just think about these episodes that just are just dry. I think that's been the hardest thing about watching the show the past couple years. Is there's been plenty to talk about. Technically, there's been things to talk about in terms of what it's trying to do, but I just the vibes, the verve has not been there consistently these past two series, and that is the thing I'm most excited that RTD is bringing back the vibes. Like, that's what I'm most hopeful for.
That's a great way of putting it. Couldn't put it better myself.
Now, I have, since I was mentioning, and I have a few more minutes before I have to jump off, because we're recording before Dungeons and Dragons. But if you got a few minutes, I want to give you a little present, which is, as I mentioned, I sort of gestured at a segue, and then I didn't take it because I'm a very good podcaster. But I couldn't help...
Oh, Alistair, I missed you.
I couldn't help but think back, and I've missed you too. I couldn't help but think back to the original 2003 announcement. And to that end, I thought about the most important thing, as we've been talking about, it's casting. And so I have gone into the Wayback Machine to find the betting odds from William Hill Media, screen captured on, I believe this is August 3rd, 2004, for who is going to get cast as the Doctor. Would you be interested in hearing what the betting odds were for Doctor
not.
Who in August 3rd, 2004?
Let's do it. Can't wait.
All right. I'm gonna start at the ones they gave the best odds for, because it's gonna get wilder the deeper we go, and some of these are gonna be recognizable to all listeners, and some of them I think are going to be a little bit more of a stretch. So we will see. Okay, so 8-1 was the Chris Marshall of his day. Oh God, that's so mean to him. I feel so bad for saying that because I love Jonathan Creek, but Alan Davis was the 8-1. He was along with Bill Nighy, he was the biggest, most consistent name for the Ninth Doctor. He was given 8-1 odds. At 14-1 odds, Richard E. Grant, which is one of the few names on this list who has ever actually made it onto the show, and indeed did technically play the Doctor if you count Scream of the Shalka, which no one does. And then at 16-1, this is the first sort of people are clearly just sort of throwing up their hands and saying, well, why not, because he's related. Sean Pertwee at 16-1. Tied at 16-1, another real just you're not even trying kind of pick. Patrick Stewart, 16-1 odds.
Oh my.
20-1, Jekyllheads Assemble, the star of Stephen Moffat's greatest program, James Nesbitt. Still someone I would love to see get involved in Doctor Who in some capacity. James Nesbitt is an incredible actor.
Yeah.
And legit, I will keep threatening to make a mini podcast about Jekyll until I actually do it, because I love that show. The next one, so he's 20-1. Sharing 20-1 odds with him is, I'm gonna have to spell this, or say it as phonetically as I can. Jonathan with an O, Price with an I.
Oh, definitely.
Jonathan Price. I think we have to assume not Jonathan Price. No, well-known and beloved actor of stage and screen, but Jonathan Price. Incredible. 25-1. Hugh Grant. Here he is. He's still in the running. Nicholas Lyndhurst of Only Fools and Horses fame and Goodnight Sweetheart. Ross Kemp of various things that I forget off the top of my head. This is the late, great Alan Rickman at 25-1. That's the only person, or one of the very few people on this list, I think, who has since died. Sean Bean is also at 25-1. Ray Winston at 25-1. This is we're really getting into an incredible menagerie of actors. Stephen Fry, Mark Strong, and Timothy Spall, all at 25-1.
That is a time capsule.
This is what the cast of that's who should have played like the hobbits or the dwarves in The Hobbit or whatever. Like get this menagerie of in there. This would have been something special. 33-1, Tim Roth at 33-1. Linus Roche, aka Thomas Wayne in Batman Begins. Leslie Grantham, Art Malik, Lenny Henry, one of the few names that's been on the show. Lenny Henry and Stephen Fry, both of Spyfall fame, and yes, I do consider them of Spyfall fame and nothing else. And Andrew Lincoln at 33-1. That's a mind bender to me, to think of a sort of, I know that's a post Love Actually, but pre Walking Dead. Andrew Lincoln just sitting there at 33-1. I find that one very interesting. 40-1, Jimmy Nail. Have to admit, not familiar with that one. Feel like I should have looked that one up ahead of time. Sounds interesting. 50-1, Ian McKellen. One of the 4 on this list who has actually appeared on Doctor Who, it has to be said. He did make it on there in the form of In the Snowman. Funnily enough, that is one of the sort of funny things is between The Snowman and Spyfall, you have all 4 of the actors on this list who have been on the show. And then 66-1, Michael Caine.
I'm sorry, I think you mean Michael Caine.
I think,
sorry, this is a podcast crossover.
I'm gonna let people agree. I'm gonna let us teach the controversy on that one. And this one is the most mind-bending name on the list, just because of how American he is. Although maybe the people who were making this had recently watched Ocean's 11 and don't know what an English accent sounds like. At 100-1, Don Cheadle. Where was the action for that one coming in? Anyway, that is the complete list of the William Hill Bookmakers choices, which I think is as good a reminder as any. It's for fun when we list those names off.
Yeah. I'm not going to read the whole list of current names, of course, but I will tell you that Lenny Henry is still on that list.
Lenny Henry still is he? Are there any other, like, is Hugh Grant still on the list, or has he not been put on yet? That feels like an oversight if he hasn't. Yeah,
I mean, I think that's probably just that it hasn't really been updated. Let's see, how far do I have to scroll before I get to Hugh Grant? If I do. He is not showing up, and we've gotten to some really ridiculous choices. So just from Odds Checker, some highlights. Ollie Alexander is at the top of the list, with Chris Marshall right on his heels, and then Lenny Henry. We've already said no, Michaela Cole is not going to do this. Next is Paul McGann.
Mm-hmm. Which, sure. Only more plausible now. Not on the 2003 odds, which is amazing, because then it actually would have made some sense. Yeah.
The next name, I would say absolutely not, except for I think there's a chance that he might just to troll David Tennant, because the next name on the list is Michael Sheen.
Oh, that one, I absolutely think that one is in play. I don't
think so?
I think I am not gonna be staggered if it's Michael Sheen.
I mean, he's an incredible actor. That would be very entertaining.
And he's very television, and that's the biggest thing to me. And it's high time we have a Welsh doctor. So
Kelly MacDonald is next, and that's not going to happen. I love her, but that's not going to happen. David Harewood, who shows up on these lists all the time, and so does Tilda Swinton. That's never going to happen. I can see Tilda Swinton being like, I'll do one episode, and then I have to die at the end of it, and that would be incredible. We've talked about that before. Mark Gatiss, not going to happen. Matt Berry, not going to happen.
Tilda Swinton is the Emma Thompson spot, to my mind. That's just like, it's like when you don't quite feel justified in putting Emma Thompson on the list, you're like, well, we need to get someone who's a little stranger. Let's get Tilda Swinton on there. But I actually think Thompson is likelier just because of the RTD connection at this point. But I don't.
Well, and she just has so much fun. I think she would think it was fun. I still think it's a long shot, but I think she would think it was fun to show up for an episode or two.
Oh, for an episode? Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, and that's the sort of general thing. I do think that we're at a point now where it's weird because I don't think Doctor Who is as cool now as it was like when RTD was running it the first time. In part because the show's just been on again for a while. But I do think it's a lot easier for me to imagine just relatively big name guest stars just saying, oh, that would be fun. Or, oh yeah, my kids watch that, or whatever. That was how they got The Simpsons always got people on. So, and also because RTD, I feel like could be very good at getting these big names if he wants them. So, yeah, I think it's all very plausible.
Carey Mulligan's on here. That's not going to happen. James Corden is on here. That's definitely not going to happen.
I would very much request that not happen.
Yeah, please, thanks. Please and thank you. Andy Serkis? That could be kind of cool. Not going to happen, but it could be cool. Gillian Anderson, she is a TV actress now, and that's not going to happen. It's these.
She's not just that; she's a British TV actor.
I know.
At this point, that's she's really decamped from the U.S. So that'd be Yeah, I don't really see that one. Although I mean, again, that's the one I see as a guest star potentially. I don't think that's out of the question for sure.
Yeah. The one that I want to put out before you go play Dungeons and Dragons and I go back to work is that I think it could be really cool if it was Georgia Tennant. If we got a Jenny, if we got like a little Jenny as the Doctor season, I think that could be really cool. But I don't know what on earth, how you would justify that as a story. But I think she's great, and that could be really fun. And there are obviously loads of Doctor Who connections there.
I certainly think it's one of the, if of all the sort of random RTD era threads that if you wanted to pick up, I'd be interested. That's up there. I think that could, you know, I mean, I think I think the story with that one is they were going to kill her off at the end of it, and then Moffat asked to keep her alive because he had an idea for something to do with her, and then when this was brought up to him, he said, "Oh yeah, no, I completely forgot about that." So I don't think that's super likely, but. Agreed, she's great. It would be great to get her in.
Maybe we could get a super season where it's like Jenny and me and Clara and the atoms that make up Bill and anybody else who's like on the lam in the galaxy all together, just like
to do
on
a
the
heist.
TARDIS having adventure. Yes, oh my god,
Yeah.
heist, time heist,
Yeah.
time heist.
Time Heist 2. Yeah, absolutely. I think all is possible. Everything is now possible, and that is what is so exciting about this. So it's gonna get fun. It's gonna get stupid. I am just so excited. Again, the first great RTD episode. Can't wait for that. The first awful RTD episode. Oh, the Love and Monsters of 2023. Oh, I can't wait. Cannot wait. Are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh, what is her name? Shirley
Henderson?
Yeah. What about Shirley Henderson?
I mean, absolutely. These are all good actors. Absolutely.
Let's do it. Let's do Shirley Henderson.
Absolutely.
Let's have a season where the Doctor is a tile in the sidewalk.
Okay, so just to clarify, not Shirley Henderson playing the 14th Doctor as a different, distinct incarnation. That character that she played in Love and Monsters.
No, I want Capaldi style. I want the Doctor reincarnates into a face from his past.
And it's the face in the bucket.
Yeah, and I just realized I just used the he/him pronoun for absolutely no reason. The Doctor reincarnates into a face from their past, and it happens to be a sidewalk tile. That's what I want.
This is the greatest show ever made, and I'm really glad that we now once again have a voice truly worthy of its lunacy, truly
RTD,
worthy and creating of its lunacy. This is the man who made Love and Monsters, who made Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords, who made The End of Time Parts 1 and 2. He's back, baby.
He's back.
The guy who said of Voyage of the Damned, yep, that's exactly what I wanted to make. He's in control again. We've given him back the toys. I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Me too.
It's going to be so good. We'll be here. We'll be talking about it. Like I said, I have some research to do, and hopefully we can turn that into some sort of podcastable content at some point. But you know, Allison, I don't know if you know this. The next series is supposed to air later this year. We're running out of this year. So whenever that starts up, which at this point logically has to be the tail end of next month or maybe start of November at a push, we'll be here to talk about it. But,
could it kick off with a Christmas special?
I mean, well, they don't. Well, if they start doing Christmas specials again, yes. They've said it's supposed to be in the last part of this year. I looked this up because I was like, when is the new... Is it going to be... Because I honestly just assumed they were going to do it next year at this point. And maybe they are at this point. But supposedly it's meant to be all of the 6 episodes that comprise this coming season. So they can get through it, but they do have to start, by the start of November at the latest. And then there's going to be the festive special that'll probably be on New Year's Day if past form is any indication with the Chibnall era. Mm-hmm. And then there's the 2 final specials. So that's it. So, so we'll be here when that happens. We know as much as you do, but we're excited about the show's future and the show's present. We're gonna have fun with it. I think that's my general feeling. It's a lot easier to have fun with it, especially when we know we got an RTD waiting for us down the road.
Hear, hear.
All right, well, everyone, that's gonna do it for this episode of Debating Doctor Who. We are so excited about what's ahead. So excited to be talking about it with all of you. As always, thank you for listening. Allison, anything the people need to know about?
Thanks to all the people who jumped in my Twitter mentions to say, hey, are you and Alistair going to do an emergency pod? Yes, we are.
Yeah. We're erratic, but we're reliable. The best
Reliably erratic.
Reliably erratic. All right, we got to go. See you, everyone. Bye.